You smell that? Someone's cooking here. Because I just had a brain blast. And I think I finally figured out why there's so many villains in Spider-Man Brand New Day, but not only that, who the main villain is or who the main villains are, and it's something that I haven't seen anybody talk about. And there's actually a very interesting way for how we can get introduced to the Venom symbiote. But you know me, I've been getting crumbs, I've been seeing dots, I've been making them connect, and I'm gonna give you guys a 20-star meal. Because while nobody else has been talking about it, me and you know what we gotta do, we gotta talk about it. And no, I don't think it's gonna end up being Mr. Negative, unfortunately. I'm positive this news is gonna make you feel negative. But I do still think we're gonna get Martin Lee in this film, and he's gonna build a close connection with Peter Parker because he's the new head. New what? A Feast, taking over for Aunt May. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think he could be playing in the shadows right now. Maybe he somehow becomes Mr. Negative in this film. But give us little hints and teases at this being a new surrogate father figure for Peter, so when that betrayal happens, it's gonna sting. But my theory really hinges on this little symbol that we got on the side of the tank, thanks to these Brand New Day set photos, which, you know, everyone assumed, myself included, that this was gonna be the Inner Demon Gang. But with the whole slew of insiders saying that not only is Mr. Negative not gonna be in this movie, but the Inner Demon Gang is also not gonna be in this movie, that kind of flipped this symbol on its head for me, and now I was scrambling to think who the hell it could be. Because one option that I hope is not true, and it's due to the fact that I assume that Punisher is in this tank, and I thought he stole this from the Inner Demon Gang, but now it could just end up being his tank. I initially thought that whatever happens in the Punisher special presentation with all these dirty cops wearing his symbol, he was going to end up changing it. Just like Jason Aaron's Punisher run, which I don't think is a bad thing, I just wasn't a big fan of them changing his symbol, because if you look at this, it does kind of look like this, but I still don't think that's what it is. Now, we also recently got set photos of Punisher in his new fit and fade on the set of his special presentation, so I'm assuming this is probably towards the end of the movie, and he's taking his symbol back. He said, give me that shit back. And he's just slightly adjusted it. So again, we're back to square one. I'm back to yapping, but don't worry, patience is a virtue. Make sure those attention spans are in check. Who did this symbol belong to? And then I started thinking about all the villains that have been confirmed in this movie so far, and all of them are like, you know, Z and D list characters. I think we're definitely going to get some type of bar with no name mentioned in this movie, if not we see it in general. Because on top of the fact that we know Boomerang is in this movie, we also recently found out that Ramrod is in this movie, as well as Tombstone and Scorpion, who I think is going to be playing like the main villain role, but he isn't like the main villain that gets this whole thing set in motion. And don't forget, at one point we're going to get a Savage Hulk, so he's going to end up being like a villain too, or an antagonist. But what do all of these villains have in common? They all got enhancements in some way, shape, or form. So now that I've set the table for you and all the foreplays out of the way and all the context is in there, it's time to fuck. Because I think Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to be Spider-Man Homecoming on steroids. But what do I mean by that? I think damage control is going to play a huge factor into this film, which we know because we got set photos of a costume designer's wall that confirms that we got DODC guard uniforms. Now, in case you need a little refresher, the DODC, or the Department of Damage Control, was introduced in Spider-Man Homecoming, and what is their goal and role and mission? To clean up all of the messes involved in superhuman activity. But since Homecoming, they've slowly but surely started getting more and more power and collecting and confiscating more and more powerful weapons, artifacts, etc. And we know this is a fact because in She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel, they have a DODC Supermax prison, which I think is where they're going to send all of the most dangerous villains. And we know that's where they're holding someone like Emil Blonsky, Abomination. And I think it would make a whole lot of sense for them to transfer, you know, people like Vulture and definitely a psychopath like Matt Gargan. But back to why I think the DODC are going to have a huge role in Brand New Day. We know the DODC has been confiscating and collecting dangerous technology and artifacts. And we saw this in Homecoming when Peter was on that trailer. We saw the head of an Ultron bot, Chitauri weapons, etc. And it was all moved to that storage facility that Peter was stuck in for a while. More like 37 minutes. But we know the DODC hasn't just been confiscating these weapons like what they did with the drones, Mysterio's drones. They rehabilitated this technology and weapons and used them for their own good, like we saw in Ms. Marvel with the drones chasing after Kamala. We even saw them with this advanced technology in She-Hulk. But outside of old Stark tech, old technology in general, maybe even Hammer weapons, Chitauri alien technology, what else could be stored in what I assume has been moved to the Supermax prison, or that storage facility is probably somewhere near here? And that's where the symbiote comes in. I bet you this little sliver is hiding in a DODC containment center, either in a storage facility, some lab that DODC controls. I think it's in their hands. And Michael Mando himself, who's going to be playing Scorpion, aka Matt Gargan, keeps teasing at the Venom on his Instagram story when he posted this image of the Scorpion, but with a Matt Gargan Venom. I made a whole other video explaining Matt Gargan's Venom and his run in the Dark Avengers and Thunderbolts, etc., whatever. Go check that out. But just recently, he posted another image of Scorpion with the symbiote surrounding him. I'm just saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. I think he's definitely going to get some type of enhanced Scorpion suit that looks somewhat similar to this, because we got to see him in the OG green for the first time in live action. And by the way, shout out to my GOAT Venomhology for this artwork. It's absolutely incredible. Make sure you follow him for more incredible art. Truly a legend in this space. But you got to remember, we got someone like the Tinkerer out there who's probably still itching and dying to get his hands on this new technology to see what he can create. And he may or may not be playing a role in this film. Maybe we also see the return of Shocker in an actual comic accurate suit. This one's more doubtful, but could you imagine seeing Michael Keaton return as Vulture again? Good old Spider-Man. And maybe at some point in time in this movie, Martin Lee becomes Mr. Negative due to whatever the hell the DODC got going on. That's more of a stretch though. But I do think some of this tech is going to be gamma powered like Scorpion suit, because in your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Scorpion suit is powered by gamma. So there's your obvious introduction to Bruce Banner, your foremost expert on gamma related topics. And we know Frank Castle's supposed to be getting some type of upgrade, and no, I don't think it's going to be an Iron Man suit because we don't want to see another Iron Man in a Spider-Man movie. Instead, I think it's going to be somewhat more like his role in the animated Spider-Man series from the 90s, where he's got some little upgrades like jetpacks and more powerful weapons to be able to take on Hulk, Spider-Man, and all these other superpowered villains. So does that mean we could see the return of Micro? Unfortunately, no. Even though it is a different universe, here's the thing. But I do kind of hope Frank Castle looks something like this, but all black. Give him the bandana, he'd be dope. There's also rumors that we could be seeing Chameleon in this movie. And don't forget that Dimitri from Far From Home is supposed to be Chameleon in the MCU. And if I had to guess, they would probably give him that Black Widow mask to let him change his face, which I'm assuming the DODC has. And yes, this was confirmed to be Chameleon in your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man because they used the same actor's face. He became a dripped up and down chameleon with a turtleneck and chain poking out. Oh, potentially. I don't think he's going to be in this movie though. But then I remember this report about how one of the villains in this movie is going to be more samurai focused. And then I remembered Captain America Brave New World having adamantium, which is the precursor to X-Men, mainly Wolverine and the Weapons Plus program. But what happened to that little adamantium sample that they saved in the beginning of the movie? Because in case you forgot, in the beginning of the movie, we know there's these groups that are stealing metals, technology, etc. to sell on the black market. But what country was the first one to successfully mine adamantium? Japan. Which brings me back to this symbol and who potentially it could be. The Yoshida clan, and more specifically the Scarlet Samurai, aka Mariko, who we saw in the Wolverine, related to the Silver Samurai. So that could definitely be another option. My brother in Christ, Spider-Man is going to be going through. He's going to be fighting everybody, not just Hulk, Punisher, but fucking who knows how many other villains. Is he not supposed to have what he wants, what he needs? All right, are you still there? Are you hanging in there? Because this is where the theory starts to get a little crazy, because we start tying it into a lot of older MCU movies and who some of the real villains are in this film. Because if we go back to Ant-Man and the Wasp, don't forget about Sonny Birch, who was enamored with PIM technology and who knows what other technology, who had a very secret buyer. Could it be a hemorrhoid attack? Much as I would love to see him return, I don't think so, but I do think his tech and all of his weapons are probably going to play a factor too. Could the buyer be Sharon Carter, who is now in a position of power in the government and she knows about secret experiments, weapons, experimental weapons? And mind you, she becomes a destroyer in the Thunderbolts run, which I mean kind of looks like female Taskmaster, but it does fit the description of the female villain that could be in this movie. I'm just saying, I don't think it's going to be this, but it could be interesting. But I feel like another organization that I haven't seen anyone talk about is the Ten Rings themselves. Who's directing this movie? Destin Daniel Cretton. We know throughout the history of the MCU, the Ten Rings have been interested in getting their hands on superpowered stuff. Like in the first Ant-Man, this person worked for the Ten Rings. Now I know this was Wenwu at the time, but the way we all interpreted this post-credit scene is that she's still going to be doing some type of dirty work and trying to get some black market deals on tech and weapons and who knows what else. Try to build the Ten Rings back to the power it was at. Well, this definitely could be an option. Of course, this all leads me to who I think the secret buyer has been this entire time. Could it be Norman Osborn? Norman's not on sabbatical, honey. Now, we do know that the greatest Norman Osborn of all time, Willem Dafoe, in No Way Home said that Oscorp doesn't exist. His son's not here. So it would make a lot of sense if Norman Osborn is trying to hide in the shadows, building Oscorp from the ground up legally at first before he brings it to the public. You know, when your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Norman Osborn kind of operates in that same realm. So this could be the seeds being planted for Norman Osborn to be the one behind all of these events. The DODC, the symbiote suit, gamma-powered weapons, Stark Tech, etc. And yeah, we might as well just have Coleman Domingo reprise his role in live action because I want him to be Norman Osborn for a while, especially because he's very key and integral role to Marvel characters at large, not just Spider-Man. The Dark Avengers run, Siege, all of that, etc. Plus, I would really like to see what Coleman Domingo does with a Green Goblin. But of course, if they do want to recast Matthew McConaughey, would be good. I actually really like Billy Crudup as a sleeper. But it does seem like they tried to give some aspects of Norman Osborn from the comics to Val, mainly with like the Dark Avengers, New Avengers, Thunderbolts thing that she did. But she's already in a position of power that's a little different to Oscorp. Either way, I feel like this is going to be some type of adaptation of Spider-Man Revenge of the Sinister Six, which even had Hulk in it. Probably just taking elements from this, not this actual storyline. But either way, the possibilities are endless in Spider-Man Brand New Day, and I cannot wait because I want Spider-Man! But let me know what you think about my theory down in the comments below, and as always, like and follow for more.